Oh, well, all right. Wait a second. Jamieson Greer is going to be here right away. It's a great pleasure to see you, Jamieson. Sorry. We were looking for Victor Davis Hanson, but I'm quite happy to see you. You must be exhausted. It's very kind of you to come on our show today after a long and successful trip. Jamieson, let me ask you something. I want to get to specifics in a minute. But in general, here you all are making these deals. Australia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia, Thailand, South Korea, etc. This is an important trade policy, but it's important foreign policy. You're cornering China, right? No love lost between them and China. They're helping us in many different ways. And some of the agreements, as I understand it, will adhere to defense purchases one way or another. So I hope the Supreme Court takes notice of this. This is a perfect example, isn't it, Jamieson? Foreign policy and trade policy are inseparable. They hold, one holds the other.
Well, Larry, it's good to be with you, and I think your insight is exactly right. We can obviously talk about the details of various deals and agreements, but when you look at the broader context of what happened on this trip, the president essentially went to the Eastern Pacific, Southeast Asia, Northeast Asia, and he made the U.S. presence known. And it wasn't just about waving the flag, it was also about rallying our friends and partners around a new global trade order. If you take a look at some of the deals we made with Malaysia and Cambodia, for example, which are quite detailed, it brings down their tariffs, it brings down their non-tariff barriers, has cooperation on circumvention and transshipment like you were talking about. It has elements of economic security. And after making all of these deals, we were able to roll into South Korea for the meeting with President Xi of China with a very strong hand. And the president had a great meeting with President Xi, and I think put us on a path for some stability in that relationship.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in that sense, it's a very, very successful trip. Now, just in some particulars, we don't have to go through every detail. The one that comes to mind is fentanyl. Fentanyl, I know, is dear to the president's heart. Fentanyl has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. It was 7 years ago at the G20 in Buenos Aires that President Trump first asked Xi to stop the fentanyl, and Xi said yes, and now it's 7 years later, and they still haven't stopped. All right. Jamieson, I'm not doubting the president, all right? I'm not doubting him. But I want to ask you, as a special trade rep, how we're going to monitor and police this, because, of course, Reagan taught us trust but verify. But, we've been down this road before. How can we keep track of this, Jamieson?
Well, you know me. I'm no Pollyanna on these issues. But the president, he didn't just randomly put the tariffs on with respect to fentanyl for no reason. He wants to see a resolution to fentanyl. In the first term, he was successful in getting the Chinese to control the fentanyl itself and to schedule it as a drug. And this time around, we're very focused on the precursor chemicals that go into it that are coming to Mexico and Canada in some cases where it's being further developed. And so we can work with those partners, and we have been working with those partners to monitor the situation. We obviously have to work with agencies like the Department of Homeland Security to see, and intelligence agencies as well, to make sure we can understand where precursors are coming, where they're being made into fentanyl, where they're crossing the border. So it's a huge supply chain, and we're addressing the Chinese part of it.
And I was reading someplace, and correct me if I'm wrong, but working groups are being set up. Are these Chinese-U.S. working groups, or are they China-U.S.-Mexican working groups, or what? Can you tell us some more on that?
Right. I think Secretary Bessent mentioned that earlier today, and that's the U.S. and China will make sure we have a working group to set up benchmarks to do exactly what you're talking about, identify milestones and make sure that we're meeting them and communicate very clearly. And remember, we only took off half of the tariffs relative to fentanyl, so we still have leverage on this point to make sure that the Chinese follow through on their obligations.
And I assume regarding the other commodity purchases like soybeans, I don't know if there were targets for oil and gas, but you're going to be monitoring that like a hawk, because they sold us out the last time, in phase one, they sold us out. So you're going to be monitoring this like a hawk. Is there something set up for that?
Yes, we are. I have at my agency, the U.S. Trade Representative, we have an ag division. We have USDA, of course, and these people run the stats all the time. I look at them frequently. In the first term when we had this going on and the Chinese began to comply with the phase one, at that time we were monitoring it. China is a country that is used to managing its economy, and doing something like these directed purchases, it's something they can do. It's something we can monitor and we can assess compliance.
Yeah, there's no reason why they couldn't do it. I mean, Jamieson, this is a good pullback. It's a de-escalation, and I welcome that. And I think everybody welcomes that in business and finance. But is that what it is? A one-year de-escalation? Does it have longer-term consequences? Is it the beginning of an era of cooperation, or is this really a continuation of what some people call a managed decoupling between the two economies?
Well, I think the answer to that is in China's hands to some degree. President Trump has been quite clear that he wants to have a great relationship with China. He does have a great relationship with President Xi. The U.S. has always been willing to have trade and investment with China, but we expect that to be fair. So we'll have a one-year period, and it's a confidence-building step, and hopefully it's a situation where we can find ways to trade together in a mutually beneficial way, to balance out the trade deficit more, to trade in non-sensitive goods. And if that's something that we can continue, then that's a good thing. And if it's something where the confidence-building step doesn't pan out, then we certainly have other options and other things we can do.
Yes, of course. Did the subject of buying Russian oil come up? Now, the big Chinese oil companies said they would stop buying it when you all put out the circulars on the on the Russian tariffs and sanctions. But did it come up at all in the Xi talks with Mr. Trump?
So the discussion with President Xi was wide-ranging, and certainly the Russia-Ukraine war came up. Discussion of Russian oil came up. As you mentioned, Treasury Department has imposed sanctions, and that's had a real effect. I won't go into further detail on the content of that, but it certainly is something that was discussed at the table between the two leaders, and both agreed that we need to find a way to end the war in Russia and Ukraine.
And one last one, Jamieson. You had announced earlier, before the meetings, that you were undertaking a 301 investigation of the broken promises of the first phase one deal that President Trump signed in January 2020. Am I right to assume that that investigation will be going forward?
You are correct to assume that, Larry. You know me too well. We didn't solve every problem in the U.S.-China relationship today. There are a lot of issues with U.S. companies operating in China or trying to operate in China that are not resolved. I mean, today was really about making sure rare earths can flow to the whole world, making sure the Chinese resume ag purchases, making sure we get cooperation on fentanyl, and we got all of that stuff done.
Yes, indeed you did. And in that sense, it was a great success. And congratulations to you and Scott Bessent and the president and your whole team. And I certainly appreciate your coming on here, because I'm going to reckon that you're exhausted. Jamieson Greer, you're a great trooper. Thanks for coming back on.
Thanks, Larry. Have a great day.